Hey, it's Barry.
Hey, it's Bryan.
And welcome back to the Collecti-Bros podcast. On today's episode, is it worth it? Mobile Suit Gundam, Gundam Vs Zeta Gundam for the PlayStation 2.
Hey, Gundamu.
We're gonna go over this game for is it worth the price based on story, gameplay, sound, graphics, and price and collectability to ultimately decide, do we think this game is worth picking up? That being said, if you like what you listen to, please follow us on social media. We're on Discord and YouTube. Link is in the show notes. I don't know, do you have anything to add?
I loved it, short and sweet.
Okay, cool. If you enjoy Gundam, what's your favorite Gundam? In the comments below, please tell us. Mine, the Sinanju.
Oh, nice, yeah.
That's mine.
It's badass.
What's yours, Bryan?
Wing Zero with angel wings. It's
Zero.
So fucking cool, bro.
I am a very big fan of the Psycho Zaku as well.
Yeah.
Something about the Psycho Zaku and the whole story behind that one is really fucking cool. But let us know what your favorite mobile suit is. Getting right into it, a little bit of backstory about this game. At least, honestly, I couldn't find a lot of backstory information on like the development of this.
Surprisingly little.
So, I mean, like, I chose this game personally because it is the most expensive, if not the second most expensive North American Gundam game.
I think you're right.
It's top 3.
It's up there for sure.
I know MS Saga, I think, is a little more expensive, but I can't remember if the Gundam on Dreamcast is like uber expensive or not. But it is one of the most valuable. It is the most.
It's the most minus the collector's edition for Breaker 4, which.
How much is Saga?
It's about 150-ish. So yeah, right there.
So they're kind of neck and neck, I suppose. MS Saga is a little bit more of an RPG-based game. This one is very arcadey.
Yeah.
So they are kind of two very different games, but they are both in the Gundam universe. I picked this one because I'm a big Gundam fan, and for the longest time, I didn't have. I guess kind of almost my whole life, I really haven't had friends that have shared like interests for things that I really like. Like I don't have someone who's like so diehard about Final Fantasy as I do. Stuff like Dungeons and Dragons or like a lot of my interests recently, like Bryan's kind of been getting into. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like now I have something to share with somebody other than just like keeping Digimon and Gundam to myself.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer on Gundam, but I mean, I watched Gundam Wing and shit as a kid on Toonami.
Yeah.
I think that's most people's introduction to Gundam, but honestly, during like busy season, peak holiday at work, I was like too tired to play games, so I'd watch 079 in bed and be like, God, this is great. Like, I've been missing this shit for this long.
So I finally have an excuse to pick a Gundam game, because it's really hard to want to pick an is it worth it Gundam game for a podcast and be the only person who really knows anything about Gundam. Like, Gundam is kind of complicated.
Kind of.
Just a little bit. And so if I were to pick something like this and like Bryan have no idea what's going on, it would be really hard to bounce off of anything other than like suits are cool.
Like robots are sick, bro.
Yeah. So I have now chosen this one, and it's good time because you have watched all of 07, 9, and then are you finished with Zeta?
Yeah, I finished Zeta.
You finished Zeta?
So my goal ultimately is finish Universal Century Timeline, then move on to something else by the end of the year.
So I didn't, there's other ones that I could have picked, but I was really hoping, I picked this one and was like, Bryan, you need to finish Zeta before we talk about this game. And you were like, no, I think I can figure it out. Oh
yeah. I mean, it was easy. Gundam's great. Like, it's one of those things, once you get started, it keeps rolling. Like, it's really easy to watch everything. The running jokes, like, there's no bad Gundam, when that's debatable. But, no, the show's super engaging, so it wasn't hard at all.
Well, no, I mean, you were gonna play the game without watching Zeta.
Oh, yeah, no.
And then you decided not to.
That's the thing, I was already almost there, so I was like, cool, I'll just speedrun some of these shows that don't matter. And it's cool, I actually picked this game up recently. I'm trying to go back now that I'm into Gundam, trying to go back and get some of these games. I picked this one up.
You did. You actually picked this one up after I had slotted it on our schedule.
Yeah, I was kind of by happenstance, honestly. I was really just trying to get Gundam games I don't have. If you've been in the Discord, you've seen all the Gundam games I've been getting, so I was
all
like...
the Gundams?
Yeah.
Bryan's been going
Gundams
crazy.
Too. Yeah.
You've been going crazy.
I'm all in, bro. This shit's badass.
So I guess a little bit of backstory about this game that I have. It originally released in, at least for us, 2004 PlayStation 2, and that was the only platform we got it on. Mm-hmm. The Japan version is also on GameCube. Yep. So they have a GameCube and a PlayStation 2, and the North America only got PS2. The reasons why behind that, I couldn't tell you. I don't know why. Who's to say if Nintendo didn't want to release space shooting robots on a family friendly platform in the United States? I don't know. And the only other thing, I think there is an arcade one, but I don't think the arcade one ever even came over to the West, period.
Nope. And really tough to find the cabinet. The only ones I found were like repurposed cabinets. I never saw an original cabinet, which is interesting. So I don't think it was, super popular.
Right. Yeah, this one, there's not really much to say on as far as like the development of it that I could really find.
It's interesting too, because this is, Capcom PS2 era. You think there would be some... It's not quite Capcom's Dark Age, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was struggling to find backstory.
Well, I mean, it's not Capcom.
They developed it.
They did develop it.
Yeah, about shit my pants when I put the disc in.
Bandai published it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I was like, wait a second.
Well, nowadays, it would never fucking happen, which is also interesting for Capcom back then. This is the kind of stuff they needed to do back then, but they're on a whole different ballgame solar system this day and age.
And as far as the most data I can find for this is the total North American sales for this game are supposedly 30,000. Supposedly. That's according to VGcharts.com. So
the eye test, I don't see this one very often.
Yeah, I had to piecemeal mine back together. I was able to get the case and the manual for like $20. Because I don't know what it is about some people not valuing cases and manuals. And then funny story about my acquisition of this game is I got the case and manual through kind of a smaller store around us for like $20 because the guy was just like, cool, take it, here's the deal. And then I found the game, just the disc, at a local store where they printed the cover off, but they stickered it as the wrong Gundam game.
Oh my god.
So they stickered it as Federation vs. Zeon.
Oh man.
Like one of the cheapest ones.
Yeah, it's significantly cheaper.
So I got this disc for $8.99. And I knew, I sat there, I was like, so when I brought it up to the counter, it's got the fucking sticker of Federation versus Zeon, and all they see is Gundam, because, I don't know, some people who work at a game store don't know everything, but also, maybe they don't read, I don't know. Not a mistake I would have made.
You say it wasn't our store.
Yeah. But when they put the disc in it, I was praying. I was like, please, 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 please let it be at the actual Zeta and not the Federation versus Zeon disc. And so I was like, hey, can I see that disc before I buy it? And they handed it to me and I was like, yep. So I got this for $30 total.
Not bad.
One of the cheapest piecemeals I've ever had.
Nice.
So shit like that never happens.
No, dude.
It gives for a fun story, but really, this game is... it takes place after the 1 Year War in Gundam, which I'll kind of give you the short version of it all, but this is set in Gundam, Zeta Gundam, which is the second series, and then Double Zeta Gundam, which is the third series. There are some series that are intermittent in between those, but as far as the timeline goes, those are the first three main Gundam series in continuity for Universal Century. There's a bunch of timelines in Gundam, and we're not going to go super into Gundam because this isn't a Gundam podcast.
Not yet.
I'm going to try and dumb it down the best I can because it does get kind of convoluted.
Yeah. But
all you need to know is Mobile Suit Gundam is the original, came out in literally 1979, and then the animes that this is based off of released from between 1979 and 1987. So that's kind of the timeline of these three series. This isn't 2004, 2005, we're going to get all these new series and Wing's going to show up. I think there's a couple from Seed in here, but that's not really the point of this game.
That's just because it was the new thing at the time.
Yeah. So this is...
And the ZZ also. Yeah, there's some suits in there, but as far as the story and stuff, it's not relevant.
So
just cool mech designs.
That's kind of, objectively, I'm not a big Double Zeta fan, at all. So
I like his chunky ass better than some of the other ones in that series.
It's like a Transformer. But it was the 80s,
started on Transformer Gundams.
But that's all I got. Do you have anything?
No, as far as backstory, no. I will say, PS2 era specifically for these Gundam games, not all, but most, I'm talking, I don't know, 80%, 90% of the games did take place in this era of Gundam. I think it's a more recent thing where some of these spin-offs and off-series and stuff were deviating from the Universal Century timeline. There's like this older group of Gundam fans that are like, you know, super loyal to UC and to defend it. I don't know if any of that had the decision-making process in this, but just for clarity, like if you're playing these PS2 era Gundam games, you're going to be playing UC Gundam stuff, which, I mean, fine by me, but...
I also see that it's not official, but the possible prequel to this game is Federation vs. Zeon.
Yeah.
Because the campaign mode takes place closer to the story, but then again, like, if there's anything set prior to 79, like, it's going to be a prequel, because that's just how the timeline works. The only other thing I could note to mention is it's saying it's likely this game was developed on the 3rd generation of Unreal Engine, given Bandai's history. But I also don't know if Bandai had a lot to do with development or if it was them just publishing it. I don't know what Capcom's full scope of this is.
I will say this. I was going to kind of say it for gameplay, but this is a good point for it. If you all have ever played Gacha Force, this game plays a lot like Gacha Force, and there's a lot of speculation, nothing confirmed, that this is running on like Gacha Force's, you know, Bones engine. And there's certain Gundams, robots, you can kind of trade one for one from Gacha Force. But like I said, no one's really confirmed that, but I would, just based on like watching it and looking at it, because I've never played Gacha Force, but I know what it is, and I've seen gameplay of it. There's definitely some similarities there, so this might kind of be the bones for Gacha Force as well.
The last thing I want to add is the reception for this game was not great, to be honest. It was mid at best. There is, let me see if I can find... The aggregate Metacritic score for this is a 57 out of 100. Yeah. So, like, we're not right there at halfway, like, into dog shit horrible territory, but, like, we're not super far. The game was praised for the number of available playable mobile suits, which is a total of 31 mobile suits that can be played in this game, which is a lot for a Gundam game, but it's not a lot for this era when you think about Dragon Ball Z, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 with over 100.
Right.
So...
I will say this, though. The parallels for this game, I saw a lot of people online comparing this to, like, DBZ's. This is the Gundam equivalent because of the amount of mechs you can pick and because of the amount of modes. And we'll cover some of that in the gameplay elements.
I would say this isn't even close to a Dragon Ball game.
No,
this is an arcade game. This is not a fighter.
Right. Not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of like how much there is to do and how much content. We'll get into it.
It was praised for the number of playable mobile suits and the number of different game modes, but it was criticized for bland background, poor controls, low frame rates, and non-adjustable camera angle, which... That is true. That camera angle is terrible.
Yeah, that quote lock-on system.
Right. So, we'll just get straight into the story. The story, as I said before, it's set 7 years after the 1 Year War, and the 1 Year War is literally the first Gundam, 79. That's when kind of the whole 1 Year War was. It's mostly set in kind of the era of Zeta, and Zeta is kind of the focus of this game, is Camille and Zeta and all of those characters. I mean, Amuro and Char are here because they are in Zeta, but as far as a focus on which series we're mostly going to be looking at, a lot of it is Zeta. If you're not a Gundam fan, if you've never touched a lick of Gundam before in your life, my best synopsis of this, all you really need to know is it's centrally about a war between Earthnoids and Spacenoids. Okay? Basically what happened is a war broke out so aggressively that Earth's resources were getting limited, and so they started to put people into space, and they built space colonies, and people were going up into space. And then it turned into a group of people up in space colonies that can't escape there, but then like the kind of elite are the ones that get to stay on Earth after it was able to revitalize itself. So not really super far from where we are realistically, to be honest. We basically expended Earth's resources so badly that like we just couldn't sustain the amount of people that lived here through warfare. So the Earth Federation was created, and the Earth Federation is basically the all-encompassing solar system global government. Like if you want to think about like one world, like world order, like that's Earth Federation. Yep. Okay. And they are elected oligarchs. This isn't like a democratic system of any kind. This is a bunch of rich people who are elected by equally other rich people to run the solar system. And it's Earth Federation because Earth is the home base, but we're running, they call them sides. They're like side 2, side 3. They're Earth colonies in these giant like space tubes. Like imagine a big giant cylinder and it's got these little fans that can open up.
Looks kind of like the Citadel from Mass Effect.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the Citadel a little bit, but they're big tubes that float around and they're giant. They are massive tubes and everyone lives inside of the inner portion of the tube. So that's kind of what a space colony looks like. They have colonies on the moon or asteroids or things like that where they've built colonies, but like there are ones that simulate gravity, simulate weather, like that's kind of what they are. And so through everyone moving to space, there was a guy named Zeon Zoom Daikum, and he was basically saying humanity is evolving to live into space and we need independence. Like he basically was like, humans would evolve into space. We need to evolve into space. We need to break away from the Earth Federation. And so he created the Zeons, and they wanted to declare independence from the Earth Federation and kind of do their own thing. They didn't want to be a part of that government system anymore. They were trying to say, like, Earth Federation, you guys are really you only care about Earth. Everyone up in space, you guys don't really care about that much unless it's what can we benefit from it. Right. So he in turn was right because humans evolved into new types, which we'll kind of talk about in a second. But he was assassinated by the Zabi family. The Zabi family took over Zeon and ran Zeon as a totalitarian system. So now you've got Earth Federation, who are kind of coded as, quote-unquote, the good guys, right? That's what the Gundam is in. That's Amuro Ray. He's like part of the Earth Federation. White Base, Captain Bright. Like that's all
your main characters.
Yeah, your main characters. Earth Federation. And then the Zeons are the ones who have the Zakus. They're any of like the red mobile suits or the green mobile suits. Like that's the Zeon, right? Those are the ones that are the quote unquote Nazi parallels. Okay, that's where we're looking at in terms of the setting of this.
They got the drip though. God damn it.
They have the drip, but like I said, Daikun was low-key right that new types started to appear, and that's what they started to call humans who, in order to adapt into space, their body evolved to have heightened mental awarenesses. And you see that more in space noids because of the exposure of living in space constantly. There are some people who aren't space noids that have new type capabilities. Amuro is one of them, where he is technically an Earth noid, but he was raised in space because his father was the one who engineered the Gundam. And not all mobile suits are Gundams. We're just going to put that out there. A Gundam is very specifically the Gundam. Yep. A Zaku is not a Gundam. A Zaku is a mobile suit. Okay.
You're pissing people off.
Not, it's like the Nintendo.
Right.
Like the PlayStation is not a Nintendo. Right. Okay.
That's a great analogy.
All the Pokemon are Pikachus, So not all of the mobile suits are Gundams. Gundam is just the famous one. Gundam is the prototype. Gundam was like, mobile suits existed before Gundam, and Gundam was Earth Federation's like prototype super advanced model. But we were like, oh shit, this is the next step of like mobile suits. Because mobile suits originally started as construction equipment and then they changed them into military warfare.
Then much like real life, they're like, we could put guns on this thing?
Yeah, where they were like, people can be inside of these big suits and lift things and put guns on there and we could fight with them. So
I'm convinced Gundam's just an alternate reality, bro, I swear.
So new types are a way my personal opinion, new types are a way for the series to explain how they can put children into mobile suits and can all of a sudden pilot mobile suits and go up against veterans of space and ground combat mobile suit combats with no fucking problem.
We won't get into it too much, but it is a fairly decisive thing amongst the fandom. They, I think the direct quote's new type bullshit.
New type bullshit. If you want to crunch that down even further, the Federation, and I saw this on Reddit, and I was like, this is so inaccurate, but it's also so accurate at the same time, right? Someone said the Federation are the British trying to control Zeon, who is the USA. Char is George Washington, the moon is Puerto Rico.
Oh, what the?
It's really funny. I was like, that's not quite it, but yeah, sure.
Oh my god.
So I guess in terms of the revolution, you can say that Zeon is the US who wanted to break away from the fucking kings of the UK. Sure, that's, but that's kind of all you really need to know, right? There's new types who are fancy people who have like advanced mental awarenesses and can like, I don't know, like they have telepathy and shit like that. And then there's the Earth Federation who run this whole system, the whole solar system, and then the Zeon who want to break away and become their own thing. Yeah,
that's a really good synopsis for the first original series. Well done.
That's kind of it. And especially for the original series, as they're coded as good and bad, right? There's good and then there's bad. And they're so like Nazi Germany coded as far as Zeon that it's really hard to like the Zeon in the original.
Well, that's one of the things I do love about the original series, because before the zombies take over, you can actually really sympathize for the Zeon. The way I always tell people is what gets me into Gundam and keeps me hooked, it's very gray. There's no the good guys do bad things in war, right? That message is all the way throughout the series. But one of my issues with Zeta actually is how black and white the enemies are, Well,
it's interesting because Zeta kind of gets a little more black and white, but it doesn't start like that. Right? Yeah, you have to also remember that you can sympathize with Zeon before the Zabi family took over, because as soon as that happened, they're the ones who gassed an entire colony. Yep.
Dropped the fucking colony on Earth.
They sabotaged and I don't know what's the word for abducting. It's not sabotage. They forcefully took over an entire colony and then crashed the colony into Earth. Yeah. And I'm not talking
no, basically a planet. They were just a
continent.
And
if I remember correctly, the crashing into the Earth is what caused the whole thing to blow up. Yeah. Because it was almost like the Cold War, right? Between the Earth Federation and Zeon. It was like a Cold War standoff thing where no one was really doing anything until they crashed the colony and it was all out warfare at that point. That
was Franz Ferdinand getting
They
shot
fucked up the Earth royally by doing that. You have to imagine how bad the dinosaurs had it when they had a meteor, and that was just a little meteor. This thing was so much bigger. Yeah. So they crashed an entire colony. They gassed and killed millions of people inside of a colony just to make a point, because the colony wouldn't side with them. It was a colony that was staying neutral. They didn't want to take sides in the war, and so the Zeon were like, well, if we can't have your loyalty, no one's going to have it. We're going to gas the shit out of you. And they gassed them. Yeah. Killed everybody inside that. So, the first series does a really good job of villainizing Zeon, where it is so hard to want to like any of them. Yeah. You start to see changes, especially with Char. But Zeon, the
best character, fuck it, I'll say it.
Right. Zeon sort of loses the war at the end of it. Earth Federation kind of wins, and then we transition into Zeta, where the Titans are made, right? And the Titans are an elite group of Earth Federation that their entire goal is to make sure that Zeon doesn't rise again. Mm-hmm. But guess what happens to the Titans? The Titans become...
they wear all black, just for the record.
Yeah.
So you know where this is going.
The Titans, instead of having the lighter colors that the Earth Federation has, the Earth Federation's red, white, and blue and gold. That's kind of their kind of color scheme. Titans are dark blue, dark black, and dark reds.
They got the drip, goddammit.
They do. Their colors are awesome. But they're the elite forces that are supposed to stop the rise of the Zeons. And ultimately what happens is the Zeon does rise again with the help of the Titans. Yep. The Titans turn into the enemy because now they're oppressing people. They're we're on a higher level than you. We're the Titans. We don't have to fucking listen to anything you're saying.
It's almost like martial law, kind of.
Yeah. The Titans are basically martial law that start becoming an oppressive force, and then when the Zeon pop up, they're like, okay, we're gonna help the Zeon come back, and now it's Titans versus the Aeug, and now the Aeug are like a smaller force of Earth Federation forces that are fighting the Titans, who are turning into another totalitarian system. So it's like you've taken the good guys, you've kind of completely flipped them over, and then we've repainted Zeon and Zeta as the Aeug with a different color scheme.
And even like Char, the main antagonist from the original, spoiler alert, he's
the leader of the he's leading the Aeug now. Like he wasn't before.
One of the things I actually enjoy about Gundam, it's really just like a broad look at war. It's not so black and white. These are complicated issues. The parallels are all there for Gundam. Like Gundam's really good shit.
We don't have to keep going about it. I mean, but that's kind of sums up like where we're at with the first two. Is you've got two forces. This is why they're fighting. One of them won, and now we flipped them on their heads in Zeta to where we're doing the same thing. It's the exact same thing that they're fighting over in Zeta. A lot of it now is new types are beginning to become a more regular thing, and so the actual military forces are fighting over who gets new types. And
then the Earth Federation's actually trying to engineer them in a lab on Earth.
Yes, they're trying to engineer synthetic new types, and that's how you create the Psycho Zaku and the Psycho Gundam, and Gundams where they're trying to control them with brain signals because new types are just so mentally advanced that they're trying to use like brain waves to control mobile suits, but in turn of it controlling mobile suits with new types, the military is trying to control the new types through brainwaves too, like brainwashing and stuff. So who also tried brainwashing in war? I can think of one group of people. And that's also kind of paralleling what's going on politically now. Is there's a group of people that we're starting to turn into, apparently.
Gundam's an alternate universe. You can't convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
It just ripped through once they turned the particle.
History repeats itself, and here we are yet again. So that's kind of the story of Gundam. Gundam is ever evolving, and this is only Universal Century. Right. There's also Gundam Seed is its own timeline. If you've ever watched Gundam Wing, it's its own timeline. They don't cross over in any way, shape, or form. So the new Gundam Quarks or whatever.
G-Quicks.
It's its own timeline.
We saw it, and I don't know how to say that shit.
Yeah. Turn A, Witch from Mercury. The what's the one with the Barbados? Iron-Blooded Orphans. Those are all their own. So, like, there's a lot of Gundams that you can watch. If this kind of makes you interested, you can watch.
I'll put that map up in the Discord, actually, because it's a pretty good reference.
Yeah, that's the one I'm using. If you're ever interested in watching Gundam Universal Century is kind of the core timeline, but it does get very complicated to understand if you don't start chronologically. So just bear that in mind. But, like, Wing, Seed, those are all their own individual series. So if you want to take a stab at those, they're not that complicated. Iron-Blooded Orphans not that complicated. Mm-hmm. It's an anime war robot thing at its core, so like how hard is it to kind of understand the concepts of that at the end of the day? But
yeah.
The one thing about the story in this one though is the main game mode, that's the campaign mode, there are situations where you play battles, and there's a possibility for you to have an alternate timeline depending on if your battle goes differently than what canonically happens in the show.
As a fan of the show, this was probably my favorite aspect from the story from this game, because I'm not saying whether you like Zeta or not. How do you feel about Zeta is how you're going to feel about the main story for this game. But from a fan's perspective, it's super interesting to see all the divergent paths. Big and small, like there's the whole start of Zeon's Amuro basically is not joining the Aeug initially, but there's an alternate timelines like, hey, what if Amuro's in the battle from the start? And it makes for a lot of really interesting scenarios, right? And it's from a fan's perspective.
It's kind of funny how like we're playing this one in the new GAU Quarks, whatever one that came out is kind of also the same, where it's like
a what if story.
Yeah, it is a what if, where the what if of it was, what if Amuro never got into the mobile suit and Char found it first, and so the Gundam gets captured by Zeon and turns into his like red comet suit.
So hard.
And then like
that shit was amazing,
Earth Federation loses the Gundam, which was the only thing they had to beat Char Aznable because he's such a talented pilot.
It's like the Red Baron basically.
Yeah, so like they just stomp on everybody with this damn mobile suit, and it turns into like this whole new type brain power little pod things that like shoot out. It's super cool, but it's also like an alternate timeline in the same aspect.
This game was ahead of the time.
I think it was interesting that they took on the idea of having alternate timelines.
Definitely adds to the replay value for sure.
But it was hard to get them.
Oh, yeah. There were some where it's like a certain character had to die or had to live. There's even some where it's like, unnamed gem pilot number 4. If he dies, it fucks up your whole timeline. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes you'll be fighting an enemy and they'll run away. And spoiler, they die later in the series. But if you kill them early, that will start a diverging path. The one thing I noticed, and it's like if you really wanted to get a whole bunch of like branching paths goings, a lot of the 079 stuff, you could just totally alter the shit out of everything from there, which makes sense because it's an earlier series. But like some of my favorite to look at, or like, Ramble Raw, what if he lived? What if he joined the AUG, or what if he joined the Titans? It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, there was one where the stage, I was able to kill 4 in the Psycho Gundam, and like she doesn't really die at the time where I was at. Like she dies at a different time. So it was like 4 is dead, and I'm like, well, I will guess I'll see the repercussions of whatever happens there at whatever point in time. So
a lot of interesting opportunities. I wish, honestly, I didn't 100% this game. It takes hundreds of hours. A spoiler.
Well, apparently it doesn't, but that's beside the point.
Telling me.
Okay, I'm just gonna put this out there. Like, so I use howlongtobeat.com to kind of gauge how long it's going to take a game. We take this into consideration when we choose for the podcast as well. And so when I was looking for, okay, how long does this game going to take me to beat? Apparently main plus extra, it says about 20 hours, 20 and a half. Playing
News to me.
Playing this game, that's not, there's no way in hell. And then when I go into the entry for this on How Long to Beat, there is only 2 polled entries. Only 2 people on this website have completed this game and put an actual like playthrough on there. So if you go on there currently right now where it says one person is playing, that's me. So I am the only person playing this game right now. Only 8 people said they have beat this game, and there's an 8.8% retired ratio, which means not a lot of people have even touched this. Mm-mm. So this is not a popular game, like at all. And in this space that I am, when you're kind of inside of a bubble, right? When you're inside of a bubble of a fandom or some kind of thing that you like it seems like, oh, this is super popular and this is super popular, but outside of that bubble, that shit's not.
Right.
So you're kind of, it's like an echo chamber, right? Yeah. You're in your own echo chamber, so it seems like this game might be one of the most popular ones on the PS2, but then that's like 0.5% compared to like the entire library.
Yeah, just Google it. Trying to find some backstory stuff. I was like, Jesus Christ, there's nothing on this fucking game.
Yeah. So the Gundam video games are not very popular at all whatsoever. And I think ultimately because they haven't been done right.
Fair.
So we can talk about that in the gameplay.
Good segue.
Alright, the gameplay of this game. So there are 5 modes that you can play in this game. There's arcade mode, versus mode, universal century, survival, and training. Arcade mode is you get to pick between Earth Federation and the AU, quote unquote the good guys with the Gundams, or the Titans and the Axis Zeon. Those are the ones with the red mobile suits, the green ones. And you choose a ground and a space type, because they make different mobile suits depending on where you're fighting, right? Ground has gravity, space doesn't, so they have to build them differently depending on what situation. So in arcade mode, you get to choose a ground type and you get to choose a space type. Mm-hmm. And you go through a series of matches. You can play this one co-op also.
Nice.
I want to say it's like 8 or 9 rounds, something like that.
Arcade mode, yeah, I think it was 8.
Something like that for arcade mode. Versus is the same structure as arcade mode, but it's only 1 match. So you would play somebody else, you'd play 1 match, and then you'd go back to choose your mobile suits again. The way the game mechanically works in terms of combat is it depends on the mode, right? Mm-hmm. There are some, especially when you're in Universal Century or arcade mode, there's some where you have to defend a point on the map for X amount of time. Like there's a point where you have to defend 2 space shuttles that are trying to go to space from them being destroyed, and I think you have to do it within like X amount of minutes.
Yeah, it's like a countdown.
Yeah, it's like a countdown timer. There's also a bar. So the other mode is it's not a health bar, it's a bar of like cost, right? Each mobile suit costs a certain amount to deploy onto the battlefield. And you start with a cost and your enemy starts with a cost. And depending on how many you destroy of what types, it's going to shrink that cost down based on how much that mobile suit cost. And then if you've depleted their resources where they can't deploy any more mobile suits, you win.
It's kind of like Battlefield in the sense of you keep killing until their bar's empty.
Yeah, it's not explained not like that very well. They just kind of drop you in, and then you just start killing them until you realize...
That's the most broad analogy I could think of.
Yeah. And that's also the idea of, like, when you choose mobile suits, you can see the cost of how much of that bar it'll take if you die. So if you're in the Zeta, which is a high-cost suit, and you die, you may only get 1 respawn before you get dumped and then lose the match entirely. And you also have an AI partner with you if you're not playing co-op, and the AI partner's losses will also eat into that bar.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how, like, quote-unquote, the health bar system works. It's just a battle of attrition, I suppose, of who can dump the bar before the next one. And there's a lot of situations in the Universal Century mode, which is the campaign mode, where like this giant 30,000 foot tall Psycho Gundam is coming around shooting lasers and stuff, and there's some other little mobile suits around that are trying to fight you, and you can't beat, like, there's some hard enemies that come on.
Dude, this game gets tough.
Especially some of the like actual characters from the show will come in and start fighting you depending on like what battle you're playing in that timeline. And they're going to be difficult to beat. And usually if you beat them, that depletes the bar so much that you instantly win.
Yep.
But if you can't beat them within a certain amount of time, they exit the map and you just have to fight off the little guys. Yeah. So it's not like you are going to lose if you don't beat them because they exit eventually, but you lose the possibility of that branching path.
Yeah, I was going to say, it makes some of the, if you want to, like, I think just straight up beating, like, Camille, the main character of Zeta Gundam, just beating his line wasn't too bad. But I was like, hey, it'd be really interesting, spoiler for the end of the game, the end of the show, so I'm not going to go too far into it, if that was altered slightly. So I was like, let me go back and try to get some of these paths, but
I mean,
some of them are tough, man. I guess, yeah, as soon as you start the game, I guess you get spoiled.
Yeah. It also came out like 40 years ago at this point.
Sure, you got time. Basically, if he wasn't, brain dead.
His brain is scrambled. Yeah. He fights like... It gets to the point where, like, Camille is a new type, and he fights so much in this war that he has such a traumatic event happen to him that his brain gets scrambled, and he's exited from the series to introduce the next character. Yep. Whether that was a good or a bad thing is up to interpretation for how Double Zeta was perceived.
I intentionally haven't started Double Zeta yet, so I'm curious.
I had to stop.
I'll say this though about Camille. Like, started out hating the fucking guy. There's no redeeming qualities, but then he turned out being okay towards the end. And now I'm like, oh, his brains are scrambled. Cool.
So that's versus mode. Survival, the same as above, but your health doesn't return. Mm-hmm. So at the end of each match on arcade mode, that little cost bar would increase back up. So every single round you would have, hey, if I lose my mobile suit, next round I get a full chance again. Survival mode, that doesn't happen. Once you lose that chunk, it stays. And it only ends upon your player death once the chunk is all depleted.
It's a true survival mode, yeah.
Universal Century mode is the core of the at its core is the campaign of the game.
That's where I spent most of my time.
It allows you to pick between 3 forces, the AUG, the Titans, and the Axis, which each have their own storyline, each have their own branching paths. You're mostly going to play from mobile suit pilots from those factions. Mm-hmm. So you'll see, like, if you're playing in AUG, you'll fight Jared, but if you want to go play as Jared, you use him in the Titans, and then you'll see crossovers of who is where, and you can play as Amuro in the AUG, because he's in the AUG very briefly. Mm-hmm. So you choose one of those 3. The same save, you can, if you're like, okay, well, I'm done in the AU for a little bit, I want to go play in Titan, you can back out, you can save, back out, go play in the Titan mode, and then work on those timelines, and then you can back out, save, and then go back to AU, you can keep working on it.
Yeah,
it's not like you're stuck with one, and you have to stay with that faction the entire time.
Yeah, that was nice, because honestly, one of my issues with this game is the amount of like crossover stages. You'll play the same stage a lot, just from a different perspective, but it's really just kind of like you're controlling a different mobile suit and you're doing the exact same stage.
Yes.
That's one of my negatives for this game.
It all takes place within the 1 year war timeline. The first 3 mobile suit series revolve around, and though it mostly follows the canon storyline, like I said, the alternate scenarios can be unlocked when you meet certain conditions, like clearing a certain character's path or preventing a death of an ally who's supposed to die in the canon, or killing someone who's never supposed to die, etc., etc. So there's a lot of branching paths for those.
Tons.
So that's kind of at the core the way this game works. There's also one more feature called the Awaken system. If you can figure out how the fuck it works, okay?
I can talk about this fucking thing.
So the way the Awaken system works is by dealing or receiving damage, a gauge will fill up under the pilot's name. So there's like that big chunk bar on the top where your cost is, and then there's a bar under your name that will fill up the more you defeat enemies or take damage, right?
Right.
And once it's full, you can activate the gauge, which will surround the mobile suit, and you get a little aura, and it's your suit and the allied suit. And depending on which Awaken mode you select, different things will happen. So there's 3 different ones that it wants you to select at the beginning. There's the Assault type, which is yellow. That one gives you a slight speed boost, attack bonus, and an immunity to flinching.
Doesn't help that much, spoiler.
Mobility type is blue, and it gets you a significant speed boost. Also doesn't help much.
Correct.
And then Recover, which is red, grants the user a small additional amount of HP, added defense, and a slight attack bonus during the gauge's duration. That's the only one I picked.
Same, because if you die, it brings you back. But the negative is, if your AI teammate dies, he steals your gauge to come back.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, like, when you have an ally, like, a lot of this game is contingent on that ally, and it treats the ally as a player. Even if it's not an actual player two
it's a random
playing
fucking
it,
gem, bro.
It's gonna treat it's gonna treat your AI as if it was a
like
player.
It's Char. It's like, oh my god, he's got a
I know, and I'm just sitting there being like, dude, I am trying to beat the asses of all these mobile suits, and I look over my ally, and he's just like taking a sword and then stands up, and then might shoot one bullet, and then shoot over, and might shoot one bullet. And I'm like, God, you play like easy mode. You know what the worst
is? If you go in for like melee combat and like you're swinging and you hit him and kill him and he steals, because there's friendly fire, by the way.
There is friendly fire. There's been a lot of times where I got blasted by a bazooka.
I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, he'll like get in the way.
Or he hits you and kills you and then waste your steel. Like, I think it's a good idea as far as letting you pick a buff. Execution was not there.
As far as Recover, the drawback of that option is the afflicted mobile suit loses a body part.
Yeah. And
any weapons or thrusters attached to it. So it's kind of like a stunted, but it's like less stand kind of deal. So as long as you're able to keep filling up the gauge, you can escape destruction. But you'll continue to lose more body parts as a result.
Yeah.
So there's also a gallery mode where as you play through these modes, you get these points. Especially in Universal Century mode, you get the points where you can upgrade the suits, as in, quote-unquote, just increase their damage or increase their armor.
Yeah, there's no, like, stats. It's literally just, like, a straight upgrade. Maybe
you
a little more health.
You just increase the pool of health that you get.
Required, by the way, for some of these fuckers.
There's a couple of the suits where you can choose a different weapon type, but it's not like you take the suit and you equip weapons to that. It's... You want the one with the beam rifle or you want the one with the clay bazooka. Like, that's kind of it. It's the same suit. And if you upgrade the Hyakushiki, you get the upgraded Hyakushiki depending on either weapon that you pick, I believe.
Yeah, it's not they're not separate suits, basically.
Yeah, so I think they're considered separate suits in, like, arcade mode where you can pick differently. Because basically the RX-78, it's like... There's the Gundam hammer, there's the bazooka, and there's the sword. And you have to unlock all of those through playing the game. Gallery also has unlockables like background music.
Which was awesome.
Little like mobile suit cards and artwork and stuff like that. So
Gallery mode's honestly where I saw the most parallels for that Dragon Ball game because there's just so many unlockables and it takes so many points to get everything. I think that's where it's like if you're going for
That's where the time
100% on your
sink is.
save, that's definitely your time sink.
So, like, overall, I think this game has a lot inside of it. How do I word this? It has a lot inside of it, and as soon as you've seen that a lot, it's the same thing over and over.
I was going to say, this game on the surface seems like it's this giant, massive, stuffed, quadruple 7-layer sandwich with all these different modes. But when you get down to the actual gameplay, it's kind of lock, shoot, rinse, repeat. Even if you switch modes, like arcade mode was like a nice little break in the pace because it was pretty easy compared to Universal Century. But once you start seeing the overlap of the same missions from different perspectives, I'm like,
this game is a hard shell with a soft center. All right,
that's a very good analogy.
Like once you're like, man, this is like, I got to get through this. Like, there's a lot to get through here, and then once you puncture that through, it's just the same all the way through. It just glides. You're just like, okay.
I'll say, even just playing it, it definitely feels like it was an arcade game, and they added like a story mode to it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
This is one of the games where like I didn't feel like it was necessary to complete this game for the podcast.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean I played an entire timeline through Universal Century mode. I played an entire match of arcade. I didn't touch Versus because it's the same thing as arcade. I tried out the training. There's a training mode too. I tried out the training mode. I went through the gallery and unlocked some stuff with their little loot boxes and stuff like that too, right? And I did everything of all of the modes I had access to, and then I was like, okay, I've experienced everything that I have to experience in this game.
I think that's super fair.
Everything else is a rinse and repeat. And I've seen it on a lot of people's, like, you know, when we had this discussion, like in the backlog discussion, we had this conversation, like, when do you know when to stop a game? Like, some of us are so concerned about, oh my gosh, we have to beat the game. Like, if I don't beat the game, then I don't have anything to say about this game. But then you come into situations like this where beating the game isn't really possible.
Yeah. Because
you can beat the game multiple times and they're short chunks, but like, what is beating the game? Is it unlocking all of the suits? Is it seeing that 100% on the bottom? Because the 100% on the bottom is me just doing the same shit over and over and over and over. So I got to the point where I was like, I have gotten everything out of this game that I would want. Everything past this point would just be rinse and repeat over and over and over. This isn't Monster Hunter. I don't want to do that with this game.
Yeah.
So I stopped. I was like, I've had everything this game has to offer me.
I think this game's like the perfect way for like how I approach large games, if you will, is like pick at it. If I sat there and got the 100% save on this game, I would be like drained of it. I would feel differently than I do about it. Sitting there and picking at it, I think is going to be fun because I probably will keep picking at it just because it's Gundam. But if I sat there and went hard and 100% saved this thing, I would probably feel very differently about this game.
Right, and same deal. This is an era where, like, maybe this is one of the few games that you had access to, and, like, as a kid, you're going to be playing this over and over. Just like Dragon Ball, where it's like it needs time to understand, like, how this game operates and then spend some time in that game to fully get through it all. It's the same deal with this, but, like, we just don't have that luxury anymore.
No.
There's too much. So I stopped playing this game because I got everything I wanted out of this.
I think that's a fair analogy, yeah.
This is a good game to be like, hey, do you like Gundam? You want to try play this game? And we can have a friend over and play and be like...
Kill some shit as Gundam.
Yeah, like, cool, what suits do you want to play as? But, like, this isn't a game that I'm going to marathon.
It's a very simplistic game. Like, you lock on, you shoot, you rinse, you repeat. It wears out its welcome pretty quickly if you're looking for, like, a... Even, like, so the idea is they have, like, ground combat and space combat, right? They both feel different, but they both feel very the same, if that makes sense. Your movement feels different, but the actual core gameplay itself's identical no matter what scenario you're in, no matter what mode you're in.
I don't want to stay too long into this, but the camera criticisms are absolutely valid. The camera is terrible. Why do I have 2 analog sticks if I can't use them? It's a PlayStation 2 game. It's not like a PlayStation 1 game where maybe it was developed when there wasn't analog sticks.
Yeah.
But, like, we have 2.
Yeah.
Why can't I use both? So
the arcade cabinet's got 1 stick too, and I'm like, how the fuck did that whatever.
But
I will say really quick, there's a bunch of like antiquated mechanics, like the knockdown, like when you're sitting there and shooting a guy, you lock on, it turns red, you shoot, you hit, it turns yellow once he gets knocked down. There was so many cheap bullshit with that where I would just get caught in like a loop where his invincibility, it feels like an arcade game trying to take your quarters. It really does. But there's just to end on a positive, there are some things I loved as a Gundam fan. Like when you get the Gundam fucking hammer and you smash like a Zaku with one shot, that shit was cool from a fan's perspective. Man.
I mean, it was cool like when you'd flip around with like this beam saber and then like you'd see him blow up, like fall back and blow up. It was cool to be like shing and it would come out.
When you're like stage 1 arcade mode and you've got the Gundam hammer and you're just one shot and shit, or with the plasma beam just destroying shit, like as a Gundam fan, I was like, this is what Gundam's supposed to feel like. That was cool. But
yeah, the cool, like, you know, Zeta transforming into like the fighter mode and then flying around was really cool in the space. Because you could only use Zeta as a space mobile suit.
Right.
There wasn't a ground option for it.
I definitely think as a Gundam fan, there's little things you're going to enjoy, but I don't think it enhances the gameplay, if that makes sense.
No, yeah. So we'll move on to music. Now, music we're going to sit in very briefly. And I say that because the music in this game really isn't video game music. Mm-hmm. And we all know it's some of the best music ever written.
Yeah,
so
Gundam
like,
music's fire.
There it is. That's all you need to know. You're going to hear it through this podcast. Like, Gundam music is iconic. And I will give them props for using actual Gundam music from the show inside of this game instead of just generating some shit.
Definitely.
It really felt like a Gundam game instead of being like, oh, this is some kind of robot game that they got a license to halfway through development, gave it a skin, and then made some generic music.
Right.
So
the music from Gundam's iconic, and like it's all in here. I was super hyped to go into gallery mode and be like, oh, this song's in here. This like let me be clear, every Gundam song from 0079 and Zeta's in here. It was awesome. That was a nice little surprise. I was spending money I wanted to get some of the Gundams, obviously, but music was the second thing I was buying for the unlocks because there were so many options here. And not even just the music, like the sound design, all of the voice actors from the original series and Zeta, like they're all here too. The sound was honestly one of the higher points, sound/music, was one of the higher points for me this game. It did feel very authentic. Like they had both Amuro voice actors for the 079. It was like that voice actor because in the show it switched. That's a nice little touch. They didn't have to do that. You can tell it was definitely made by fans, and they put time and effort into that, and it shows so much. Yeah,
there's a lot, and there's not really like one composer that I could say is a dedicated composer for this game because there's music for multiple series that have multiple composers. So if you are interested in Gundam music, like just go look up because it is
Please do,
very
your shit's
dense.
Fire.
But Gundam music is definitely in the scope of anime as well. Some of the best music that's been written. It's super iconic. Like once it hits, you're like, man, that feels so good to like have it in the game. So I appreciate that it was placed in the game instead of generic stuff.
Definitely.
But I'm not going to sit in music too long because of that point.
No.
So we'll move on to graphics. Graphics in this game, what did you think?
Some of the environments were not great. I do, however, think that it was a limitation based on the kind of game it was. Like, you're basically fighting in a small bubble arena, right? Some of the stages, you know, like the Hong Kong level where you fight the Psycho Gundam, you have your skyscrapers and stuff, and there's landscape. More times than not, though, flat surface. There might be some trees that fall over.
I will say, like, it is flat surface, and it's like, it's a flat surface, and you've got maybe a selection of, like, rectangular buildings that, like, once you've damaged them enough, they kind of just go poof and disappear. But it is cool to, like, walk into the stage, and even as flat and generic it is, see the background of, like, the side curling up.
Yeah.
Or the space, I think, is where it's shown the most. Like having the space combat and then turn around and try and shoot at a mobile suit, and you just see the entire like sphere of the Earth and like huge. Like it's not like Earth is tiny and far away. It's like as soon as you turn around, the whole screen is like right there because you're fighting like in Earth's orbit. So, and there's like debris and stuff inside that you have to like maneuver
Space
around.
was cool with the debris. Yeah.
Space was really cool. I think it was much stronger as a space fighting. Even with the fighting in the arcade versions and the movement and the speed, the space was far superior than any of the ground stuff.
Yeah.
It was cool on some of the stages where you could fight underwater. Like if there was water, you could drop inside of the water and fight them inside of there.
There was one level where it was like basically 3 rivers that converge into one giant one. That was a standout ground level.
Yeah, and there was like a little island in the middle, and you could jump up on the island and fight. But if the mobile suits went down inside the water, you'd have to go down there, and you can't like. I can't remember if you could shoot through the water or if you had to get into the water before you shot.
Break. Yeah.
So there was some cool aspects as far as like level design.
Yeah.
Even if outside of it being flat, but I can see the criticisms and agree with them as far as graphics on this. The one thing I didn't like about this is if you stood completely still, it looked like your game froze. Huh. I don't know if you ever experienced that,
notice it.
But if there was nothing happening on the screen, like because there were situations inside where you would be waiting for the enemies to appear, you and your little robot ally, so there would be no enemies to fight or engage with, but if you stopped moving, it looked like the game froze.
Interesting.
Because there's nothing
going on.
Idling. Yeah, there's no idling animations of any kind.
I can see that.
So, and it was so like, that I just had to keep moving. I was like, I can't stop because it freaks me out.
Because I was trying to look at like the walking animations. So like the Gundams that don't float, they looked really cool and they walked around like the RX-78. He would like kind of jog and stomp. And like when he'd swing the sword, I was looking at all those animations. But
yeah,
I think the Gundams looked really good.
Yeah, the next game we do, look at what happens when the animation doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like idling animation is so important for a game, and it is so noticeable when it's not there.
Break immersion for sure.
I was like, is my game frozen?
Damn. What's
going on? Yeah. What's happening? Because I was playing an emulated version for this to get game footage for, and I was like, my emulator froze?
Damn.
What's happening? And I was like, oh, that's just how the game is. There's no idle animation.
Damn.
I mean, like, I get it. It's a robot, right? Yeah. Like, as soon as the robot stops getting input to move, it's going to freeze in place. Yeah. But the environment had nothing happening inside of it.
No clouds, no wind.
So,
yeah.
That was a bust. That was disappointing, unfortunately.
Even, like, I was hoping to see the Psycho Gundam, like, destroy the buildings and stuff. Like, they would fall, but it wasn't like they would...
They just go...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me... I don't want to shit on like Japanese games, but it reminded me of like the Godzilla PS4 game.
I was literally thinking about this game where it operates the same.
There's parallels for sure, bro. Yeah. There's both by Bandai. There's parallels for sure. But I think all the suits looked really good. Like I could tell what every suit was even from a distance when it was coming towards me.
Yep.
Another criticism I saw online is like performance. This game ran really well for me, and I was playing on a PS2. I didn't run into a lot of performance stuff at all, man.
I didn't experience that either.
It was pretty. I was actually kind of like, damn, this runs really smooth.
Yeah. So I didn't. Maybe if there's a game mode that we just didn't play where there's too much happening on the screen.
That's the thing, because like some of the later scenarios, there's a shitload of enemies on it. I'm talking 7 or 8, because like there was one where it was Char's timeline, and you're in that river level. I was letting the Zaku's like come to me in the water, and there was like 7 or 8 at a time, plus my ally, plus me. And I was like, oh, this is gonna chug. We're underwater, but it dropped frames, but it wasn't like it was horrible. So I don't know where that criticism comes from.
I mean, maybe those are criticisms of the time because now we're so used to horrible.
Maybe, yeah, honestly.
You know, like we're so used to the horrible chug that we're like, this is great.
Because even like when you start the game up in the super animated menu, which was awesome, I was like, damn, this runs really smooth. Like I was expecting it to skip and shit. And performance-wise, this game runs like a dream, honestly.
Yep. But we'll move on to the bread and the butter of this podcast. Price and collectability, and is this game worth it? As far as how much this game costs, you're looking at, it's a standard PlayStation 2, right? You get a PlayStation 2 case, you get a game manual that is full color.
Double checked.
Yeah. You get a game manual that is full color, has its registration card possibly in it, and then a game disc. There's not anything outside of that. There's no special editions. There's no versions that have anime discs in them, as far as I've ever seen. So, but that's what this game is. Loose for the disc, we're looking at around $90, $95. complete in box is about $150. The Japanese version of this game for PlayStation 2 is like, you could get this for like $10. Like, it's
Holy
not
shit.
expensive. I'm pretty sure you have it.
Do I?
Yeah.
My app says I don't. I want it. Just because that's a fun variant set I'm going for. It's all the Japanese Gundam games, but yeah, that's shocking. I didn't check. Is there subtitles for this game?
Is there subtitles?
Yeah, like, can you turn English subtitles on?
I don't think there's any option inside of the menu for that.
Because that would be goddamn.
Let me
The GameCube version looks like it's going for around $100.
taking Japan out of my search. Okay, so what I told you may be not super updated.
What, for price?
Yeah, for price.
Well, I bought mine a couple months ago for like $130.
Well, I'm looking at available right now, and it's higher than that. So let's see. Let's see some recently sold ones. You've got 150. You've got 160. This one looks like disc only for 60. 140. $100. 180 complete. 160 complete. 180. 180 complete. 150 complete. Disc only, 46. So we're going to say 150 to 180.
Yeah.
Maybe depending on condition. Disc only, you can probably maybe get for $50, but we'll say it's still 50 to 100. It's kind of what you're looking at for this game. So is this game worth $150 to $180? And I know you said you just bought yours for what, 120?
130.
130?
Yeah, this was with a 20% off coupon. They had 150 on it, so I was like,
Okay.
Yeah. But, so I think I'm a special case. Y'all know me and collect everything. I do love Gundam. I'm actively searching for the Gundam games, so this was like an easy purchase for me, right? I was like, hey, it's about $20 off. It's what I'm after. I think fandom for this game, once I started seeing the parallels, people being like, hey, this is our Gundam fandom's DBZ T3.
Yeah.
They got me more excited, so I was like, yeah, I want this. Like, literally the game store's across my house, and I was like, yeah, I'm going over there to pick this up. Like, let's go. I think we were recording here, actually, and I was like, hey, bro, they just posted this. So for me, it's an easy buy at that time, but after playing it, if I'm being truthful, we talked about it. There's a lot of modes. It seems like there's a lot to offer.
Mm-hmm.
As a fan of Gundam, for me, I do want to go back and pick at this, but dude, there's no way I'm going to sit there and play it for, another 40 hours straight just to get everything. This is one where it's like, let me do a couple runs of this character. Maybe I'll beat this character in this setting. You get a lot of like time with this game, but I don't know if it's like meat on the bone time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think there would be more meat on the bone for me to eat if, like, in the Universal Century mode, there was more in between those battles.
Yeah.
Like, inside, there's not really any cutscenes. Like, you go inside of the battle, and, like, maybe the pilots will have something to say. I think the mission where you had to defend while Char was having his speech, as Quattro was having his speech, you had to defend it for him to be able to say things for so long. Mm-hmm. It was cool to hear that speech, like, through a shitty little speaker in the background of the actual, like, combat.
Right.
But after that happens, like, there's no transitional text to tell you, like, what we're doing on the next one, other than you're defending XYZ from whatever.
Right.
So there wasn't, like, a cutscene of things that happen that Dragon Ball Z has.
Exactly.
Like, Dragon Ball Z has little cutscenes before or after or at points.
That's the thing.
To explain what happens in the story, and in this one is just nothing but combat. It doesn't care about anything outside of that.
The Dragon Ball games did a really good job of, like, presenting what happened in the anime. This, if you don't know, like, I recognize scenarios and shit. That's the only reason why, because I just watched the fucking show. If I didn't, if you're not a fan of a Gundam, you're gonna not get anything.
Right, and that's why I told you, I was like, you have to watch Zeta
absolutely. So
before you play this, because you're not going to understand
like,
anything.
What the fuck, man? Like, there's definitely, like, really cool moments in the show you get to replay. But, like, if you weren't a fan, it would just be like, oh, there's a big robot marching through Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Oh, them defending these shuttles.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm in space fighting this gold suit. It wouldn't hit the same, you know what I mean?
No.
You definitely get more enjoyment from this game if you're a fan of Gundam. I think there is a lot to do in this game, but it's kind of surface level, and it really does pain me to say that.
It's a lot to do, but it's a lot of the same thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to take my, like, passion for Gundam out of it. If this wasn't a Gundam game, I would not enjoy it.
No.
Like, I want it. I think it's simplistic, and it's one of those games where it's fun for the first 20 minutes, like locking on, getting the timing right, getting your melee strikes, because it's kind of timing. You have to wait till they recover. That was a fun little catch, but after you've done it for that 20 minutes, turns into 30, it turns into an hour, it's like, holy shit, is this all the combat?
Yeah,
Even going to space, it was like, oh, it controls a little different. You're floaty. You go up and down.
I think I could play this for maybe like 2-hour increments, but after that, I was like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, because
and I can marathon games.
Dude, I was trying to beat the characters I love. That's kind of what I did, but when you get like whipped, and it's like, oh, I gotta spend upgrade points, and it's like, oh great, now I don't get to unlock the cool Gundams I want in the arcade mode. It kind of takes away from it, man. I was grinding initially to get cool robots to play in arcade mode. I wanted Big Zam, goddammit. I didn't get them, and it hurts me.
I mean, I will say, I never actually upgraded my suit. I never had an issue.
Some of these motherfuckers. Dude, what's the...
Because I went through and some, like, there'll be bubbles. It'll tell you the difficulty of the next match you're playing in UC mode. And I was like, okay, here's a hard mode. Right. And I was like, okay.
Some of the earlier ones aren't bad, but if, like, you're trying to unlock certain timelines, you have to, like, kill them before they run.
Oh, yeah, that's different.
Oh, my God, dude. You just don't do enough damage. Like, you literally have to upgrade.
Yeah.
So, overall, as from, like, a gameplay perspective, I don't think this one's worth it. If you're a fan of Gundam, this is our largest offering of fan service, if you will, not in the actual sense, but like as far as what it's supposed to be. So it's a really cool thing for a Gundam fan. But if you're not a Gundam fan, I don't think I can recommend this game, honestly. It hurts me to say, bro.
The thing for me about this one is like, we have Dynasty Warriors Gundam.
Yeah.
Like, there's other options than this game that I would rather play. And sure, it's on another platform, but Dynasty Warriors Gundam...
When you're spending $150 on it, this doesn't matter.
Right, like... if I had to pick this or MS Saga, I probably would be more inclined to pick MS Saga, because there's more to chew on as far as, like, a story. It's not just the same shit over and over. It is turn-based, so it's a whole different kind of game.
Definitely a different flavor.
But, like, if I had only $150 and they say pick one, I'm probably going to pick one that's a little bit more engaging for me. And this is not the engaging one for me. This is a cool, like, showcase game.
Yes.
It's a cool game to, like, have playing in, like, a game store that someone can pop in and maybe, like, play.
Community chip at it would be fun.
And, like, not know what the hell you're doing and get blown up a lot. Right. It's cool to be like, oh, yeah, it's cool to fight on the moon and be here in this part and defend the shuttles in certain situations. But, like you said, outside of that context and you have no idea what's happening in this, there's no investment.
I would literally be like, why the fuck is this so expensive if I didn't know shit about Gundam?
No, in those games that don't have a Gundam skin, right? You have just Gun Griffin or Mech Assault or some kind of other robot game. In order for you to stay invested into playing that game without being like, that's a Gundam, that's a Zaku, that's a Rick Diaz. Yeah. Like, you need a story.
Yeah.
Even if the story is something to keep you going or explain, like, what these suits are or what we're doing with them, you need a story to go for the next stage. Yeah. And this doesn't have that. It doesn't even have that. So anybody who doesn't like Gundam would be like, what am I doing? What's the relevancy of XYZ?
Right.
What's this little short thing on a tank that, like, can't do anything except shoot a cannon? You know, like, he can't do anything. He kind of sucks. He does. Did you play with the gun tank? He sucks.
Oh, dude, I love gun tanks.
He's terrible.
Like, of course I did, but I was like, so especially after playing like Gundam Evolution where he was like the shit, I was like, what'd they do to my boy?
Like, this is a terrible robot game.
Yeah, dude.
There's nothing in here that keeps you playing this as a robot game. If you didn't know anything about this game.
If this was generic robots just made by Bandai, this would be a completely different experience for me.
And like you said, that's painful to say. But it wasn't super
positive, honestly, initially.
It's painful to say is like our Gundam game, especially for the podcast, ended up just being like a nothing game.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing. I tried to go in with like no expectations, but I was like, oh, it's an expensive Gundam game. I should have learned from doing this podcast.
We should have known why.
Doesn't mean it's good. But that's the thing also. I don't think it's a bad game. It just doesn't feel like ideas were fully realized.
No. And that's why I say it's mid at best. Like, there's been multiple times during this podcast where the scores don't mean anything. Right? Fighting Fantasy is a great example of like why that game shouldn't deserve to be a 48. And it was so much better than that. But like, this game is not better than kind of what the aggregate score is. Like, it's middle of the road. It's almost exactly middle of the road, and that's all this is going to be. And you get the extra 7 points of a 57 instead of a 50 for being Gundam.
Right.
Right?
That's the thing. I appreciate how they tried to like stuff it, but it's like you have to grind to stuff it. Nobody wants to grind unless it's an RPG and you're like working towards experience to beat shit. It's not in that. You're grinding for arbitrary points.
What this is it's a piñata in the shape of an RX-78 head, but there's no candy in it. So you can beat the fuck out of this piñata. You can beat this piñata all you want to, but there's no candy that's going to come out of it. Damn. But it's like, cool, I'm beating an RX-78 head, though. Like,
because, like, that's the thing. I had moments where I literally had a smile on my face. Like, when I got the Gundam hammer, I was like, oh, this is sick. And then I'd be arcade mode, and I was like,
now what? Now
okay,
what?
I spent 2 hours grinding for the Gundam hammer, and there's my payoff. You know?
I mean, it's cool to like, oh, I'm playing the game and pause it, and I can hear the Gundam music in my kitchen when I'm getting a little snack, and I'm just like, oh, I love the Gundam music, but, you know, outside of that, like, there's really nothing in this.
I can also pull up YouTube, pull up Spotify, and listen to Gundam music,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
so, like, overall, no, this game isn't worth it.
Yeah,
we haven't had a non-worth-it game in a long time, and, like, this game is not worth it. If you don't want to collect Gundam, if you're not interested in Gundam, don't even gravitate toward this game.
$30 that you paid for it, I'd say it's worth it just because. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is like a $40 game tops.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly,
and I think maybe the scarcity of this is what's driving that price up.
Sure.
But like,
I don't see it very often.
This not a good game.
It's not a quality game.
It's not a terrible game, but it's not a good one.
The ideas were there, man. They just weren't fully realized, you know, and it's almost sad because that's the thing. Like, there's other PS2 Gundam era games for the story. Like, what's the Zaku one? I can't think of the name.
Zeonic Front.
Yeah, where that one's like very story heavy. So like, if you want a cool story Gundam game, you have options. If you want better gameplay, you know, Counters in Space is supposed to be like a really good space Gundam combat game. You could have taken ideas from pre-existing Gundam games and implemented it into this one. They didn't. This is literally just like, oh, let's port the arcade game. Let's try to pad it out so we can put it for retail. That's the total vibes I get from this.
Yeah, let's kind of jump off of the success and popularity of Zeta.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Zeta is heralded as the best Gundam in the franchise.
Debatable.
So, you know, it's one of the most highly rated.
It's good though. Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and shit on it. It's good.
But this game ain't it?
No.
So
no. Shocking. It kind of hurts, honestly, but it's, you know, we're gonna be honest, we're gonna be fair. I'm
happy to have mine.
Same.
As a Gundam, like,
but if I wasn't
lover,
a Gundam diehard, I would be like, what the fuck did I just drop this money? I feel like how Nate felt after the Rule of Rose, you know, like,
absolutely.
Yeah, this is definitely not. I think it's a cool collectible because, like I said, I've seen like 3 copies total. Yours, mine, and there's one in a store, but it does pain me to say that this is not worth it. No. And that's the thing. Like, I would say if you can pick the Japanese copy up for cheap, if you're a fan of Gundam, I think it's worth fucking around with for $10. You know, that's a different conversation. NTSC version, hell no. And the GameCube goes for like $100 also. That'd be cool too because there's not a lot of GameCube games. But I'm not spending $100 on this fucking game for the minimal story there is. You can't understand it unless you know Japanese. It's so unfortunate because there's some things this game does so right. Like the pilot animations when they're talking, like, you know, launching or whatever was so cool. It's like straight out of the show. The intro, as soon as I turned the power button on, saw the disc play, and it's Camille launching, and he goes towards the screen. I was like, this is going to be so fucking sick. And then you've played the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over, and it never ends. It's like, man. It's almost like what could have been is more exciting than what actually is there. Even though there's the appearance of a large buffet, but then you realize it's the same shit. So, not worth it.
No.
It sucks. It pains me, but not worth it.
Well, you heard it here. That's why only 2 people, I guess, put entries on for this game on howlongtobeat.com. But Mobile Suit Gundam, Gundam vs. Zeta Gundam, not worth it. Not worth the price.
What a shame.
All right, next time, Bryan, what's the next episode?
Next episode, something I used to do a lot. Now I don't anymore because I'm dumb. Honestly, truthfully, I saw a video on YouTube and it was basically like, did you know that this game was based on a novel? This game was based on a book. And I was like, kind of fell down a rabbit hole. So next episode's video games that are based on books/novels. And you know, it's interesting too because everyone knows video games based on movies usually suck.
Are we going to include folklore in here?
Why not?
Okay.
Might as well. Fuck it.
Some come to the top of my head.
Yeah. There's honestly, this is a way deeper rabbit hole than I realized. I was like, holy shit, what book is this? But, huh. So, maybe my fascination's not interesting to some of you, but I was fascinated, so. Hopefully somebody out there other than me enjoys this one.
But that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Sorry to break your hearts.
What Gundam is your favorite Gundam?
Overall?
I just meant, like, for the listeners.
Yeah, but, I like talking about Gundams.
That's it for this episode. Break the glass ceiling. Stay oppressed. Let us know what you thought. Yada, yada. Someday we'll have an actual outro. Who's to say?
Never.
We have the intro fine, but I don't know about the outro.
Never.
So. Stay oppressed. See ya.
Later.
Bye. Collecti-Bros out.
Bye.